Hello, welcome to Dundrol's podcast. I'm your host Justin. Today we're reviewing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind, which is season 4 of the TV show, but it's part 5 of the manga. For people who don't know what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is, JoJo Bizarre Adventure is this generational saga where you have like a main character who's usually part of the Joestar family. That changes by series part 5, right? Or part 3 if you want to get technical, because the main characters don't, after that point, don't have the Joestar last name. But the series started off when about which with this like rivalry between the Joseph Joestar and Dio Brando, right? Who is a recurring villain in the JoJo Bizarre Adventure. And then after that, you have like the second part 2 is about Jonathan Joestar's grandson, and then part 3 is the grandson of Joseph Joestar, who's the grandson of Jonathan Joestar. It's basically you have this generational like saga, right? Where like the first 2 series was basically like vampire hunters versus vampires. By series 3, they introduced stands, which is like the stands are basically stands inspired like the Persona series and Shaman King, other Shonen Jump series, because it started off as a Shonen Jump manga, where basically you have the main character whose power is that he can summon like an avatar, right, called a stand in this series, and others, and like Persona, it's called Personas, where the avatar usually can't be seen by non-stand users, have special powers, right? And that's when that part 3 introduced stands, right? Which you can see some examples of stands, right? Where you got like Jotar Kujo, Star Platinum, Dio Brando's The World, right? Yeah. The main character in this show is the Giorno Giovanna. I almost forgot for a second, right? Which part 5 came out in 2019, made by David Production, right? I only have part 1 here, but I watched the rest of the show on Netflix, and it's on Tubi, right? I only have the part 1 of the Blu-ray, but right, yeah. This main character is the illegitimate son of Dio Brando, right? Who lives in Italy, right? Who aspires to be a mafioso, right? And his stand is it barely comes up on the camera. Let me see if there's art. I'll flip through the art book, right? See if there's a better picture of his stand, right? Okay. This is the episodic guide. You can kind of see him right here, right? That's Golden Win in the English dub, or Gold Experience, right? The reason why... Ah, shit, I just dropped dropped the case. Let me just pick it up for a second. Okay. You can actually see him pretty well on the cover here. That's Gold Experience, or Golden Win in the show, right? In the English dub. The reason why the stands have different names in the English dub is because the mangaka Hirohiko Araki is a huge fan of music, so a lot of the stands and characters throughout the series are named after famous musicians or songs. Like Gold Experience is named after a Prince album, right? And you have stands like Metallica and like one of the characters, Stan, is like Spice Girl, which if you don't want to look up the show, look up what music references they have after like you watch the show. Watch the Japanese version. The in the Japanese dub, they'll say the real names of the stands, right? Where in the English dub, they'll come up with new names like Yoshikage Kira's um, stand was Killer Queen, but they changed it to Deadly Queen. That's a Queen reference. So the show is about, basically, it takes place in Italy. It's about this main character named Giorno Giovanna, who is the bastard son of Dio Brando, right? Who was the villain of Part 1 and Part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And he, what's going on in the show? First, it starts off with where he robs a character. I think it's Koichi from Part 4, who's visiting Italy, right, looking for Giorno Giovanna, but doesn't know what he looks like, right? So he robs him, right, and you have cameos from Koichi and Josuke, not Josuke, Jotaro Kujo, who's not in the show. That's one of my problems with the show, is they'll have cameo characters will show up and then they'll just disappear from the show, right? So yeah, there's a subplot where like Jotaro Kujo wants to meet our main character here, but that never happens in the show. What ends up happening is he, after getting in a fight with another mafioso, he fights this mafioso named Bruno. What was his name? Bruno something, right? Oh my god, I can't remember his name. Let me just Bucciarati, Bruno Bucciarati, whose stand is Sticky Fingers, but they call him Zipper Man in the show, right? That's him right there. He's like, and you can see some of the other stands here. That's Moody Jazz, which I don't know what the actual name for it is, right? And after fighting with Bucciarati, who also is a stand user, Bucciarati decides to recruit our main character here, because they're both, despite being mafiosos, they want to take over the syndicate that controls Naples, which that's where the show first starts off in, where you have this mafioso organization called Passione, who's controlled by this mysterious leader who becomes the main villain of the show. Right? Who's this mysterious leader who doesn't want anybody to know his secret identity, and he's ruining the lives of people selling drugs and whatnot through his organization. So, like, Giorno Giovanni joins Bruno Briacci, Briacci, I forget his name. The Italian names in the show is kind of hard to pronounce at times. He joins Bruno's team, which is Guido Mista, whose stand is Sex Pistols, which is this 6 bullets that can change the trajectory of 6 bullet stands that can change the trajectory of bullets that he shoots out from his revolver. You have Fugo, whose stand is Purple Haze. It's called Purple Smoke in the anime. Who can release like a toxic vapor from its capsules on its fist. It's a very powerful stand that barely used in the show because Fugo just fucks off Once they find out, that's one of my problems. That's one of the characters who fucks off from the show, Fugo, and that pisses me off. And the other characters you have, um, is this the tiny kid character. I forget his name. Oh my god, what was his name? There's a Baccio who's the ex-cop whose stand is Moody Jazz. What's the real name? I don't know. Whose power is he can replay memories, right? And you have what's the other kid's name? He has like a stand called a Little Bomber, but it's actually called Narancia. That's his name, right? Who's like the one of the members whose stand is Little Bomber, but I think it's called Aerosmith, right? And it's basically just this plane that he can control that shoots real bullets and bombs, kind of like Bad Company from like Part 4, right? And most of the show is them protecting this girl named fuck, what was her name? I just forgot. I just finished watching the show, but I'm just blanking on everybody's names. Trish, yeah, Trish, who is the daughter of the boss of Passione and has like assassins going after her who want to find out the identity of the boss and think that though she's never met him, they think there's a clue to his identity through her stand, which is Spice Girl, which is called Lady Spice in the anime, the English dub, right? Whose power is she can just make stuff elastic, which doesn't really fit the name of her stand at all, right? Yeah, so like, yeah, they go on a road trip through like Italy. They end up in like Venezia or Venice, right? And they have to take on this hitman team who have different stands that are pretty cool, right? One who can control ice, one that's called Tiny Feet, which I don't know what the actual name for it, which can shrink things. You had one who's like who can make like a perfect can make a perfect assassin that's like a long range type that can make a perfect assassin to go after somebody using their DNA and a woman to like give birth to them, right? Yeah, so like I don't know, I really enjoyed this show. I love the mafia theme, right? And the villain of the show, Diavolo, whose stand is King Crimson, who's Emperor Crimson in the English dub, is a pretty cool villain, but a lot of people argue that his stand does not make sense at all, right? And what I don't want to spoil what his stand can do, but it's very similar to Dio's stand, right? And there's like even a plot twist to his character where like I don't want to spoil it, but it's like it's pretty cool, right? Yeah, so like you just like in the other JoJo Bizarre Adventure shows, you got great, awesome, strategic battles, right? And you have the awesome comedy, and there's lots of gore and ultra violence. Though sometimes it's like censored, well they'll black out like wounds and stuff. But there's really cool shit in the show, and I really love the location where like it's set in Italy, and you get to see the different locales. The show ends in Rome at the Colosseum, right? And you also have another cameo. You have a cameo from Polnareff from Part 3, who contacts. Once our main characters get branded as traitors against the organization, Polnareff contacts him and tells them to meet up with like him at the Coliseum, where he's like a cripple with prosthetic legs who's in a wheelchair. Who you find out that he actually met Diavolo, the leader Passion, and had like a battle with him and lost and became crippled, and was waiting years for his chance to defeat Diavolo. One problem I have with the show is based off the. I just kind of don't get why Polnareff wouldn't go for Jotaro for help on defeating Diavolo when the Jotaro's stand would probably be able to beat um, beat Fugo's stand, but I could be wrong on that because King Crimson's stand ability is very complicated. Like a lot of people argue it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I thought it kind of made sense to me, but like it it kind of made sense to me, but like I could see people argue back and forth that it doesn't, right? And I don't know. I think it's the thing where in a long running series like this, sometimes to top yourself, you have to come. We've already had people with like crazy powers and stuff, so like for him to make a new power that kind of tops like the older villain powers, you can kind of give him some leeway that it doesn't make sense or whatever, or if it sounds like complicated, right? Which I think it makes sense, but people would argue that it doesn't, right? I don't know. I really like the show, and this is the season though. Though part 4 had very weird hairstyles and costumes. Here it just gets crazy with the hairstyles and the costumes. Like, look at the main characters' like hairstyles. Like, what the fuck is that? And also the stand, right? This is when the manga, they went from protagonists that were huge and bulky to like more feminine, like slender protagonists, right? The protagonist after this is a woman, which is like Jotaro's daughter. I forget her. I think it's like Jolene Cujo, right? Which they never. You saw Jolene Cujo in part 4, but like you never found out who her fucking mother is. And apparently, from what I hear, you never see her mother in part 6 or whatever when it's Jolene is the main character. So people joke that it's Kakyoin from part 3 or some shit. Which that was like a funny Antfish parody. Antfish, for people who don't know, did the JoJo Bizarre Adventure abridged series, which was fucking awesome, right? Yeah, so I don't know, I really enjoyed the show. If I were to rate it, I would say it's an 8 out of 10. Not as great as part 4. Though it was still good in my opinion. Part 4 to me though, like I didn't I would have like part 4 was so great that I thought part 5 I wouldn't enjoy as much, because part 4, for people who don't know, which is Diamond Unbreakable, right, is the series where it's when the series that series was based off like David Lynch's Twin Peaks. So, and I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan, but like yeah, that series was great, but this doesn't top that, but I still thought it was both good. But though I did think I wasn't a huge fan of the openings and the ending songs for this series. Like I felt like the last couple series had better opening and ending songs. This one was like not as good. Like the ending song is like they always use like a popular English song for the ending for this series, and this one was some R&B song I never heard of, right? Where like the last series was like part 3 was Walk Like Egyptian. Part 2 was a Spin Around or Roundabout, and like part 5 was like it was like some 90s song, I forget, by Savage Garden. Cherry Cherry Coke or some shit. I don't know. I forget. But like, yeah, I thought the opening and ending songs was not good. Also, as a huge fan of Part 2, where you had an Italian protagonist. Well, not protagonist. He was like a main character, but like not the main character. Caesar. I thought like they should have had like an heir, like a relative of Caesar. Um, uh, what was Caesar's last name? Caesar was like the grandson or something of the one of the main characters from Part 1. And since like they were at his home country, I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity. They didn't have a relative as what was Zeppeli, right? Yeah, I think it was Zeppeli. Um, so I thought that was a missed opportunity. And like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that I forgot to mention this in the English dub. Despite everybody's supposed to be Italian, they just use their regular American accents, and that to me that was a huge missed opportunity, right? Because like you had like Italian accents in the series like Part 2, Battle Tendency. For them not to have it here, I thought was a wasted opportunity. I really was disappointed that they didn't have Italian accents. Though they used a lot of Italian words, right? Like stronzo and what was the there was this one Italian word they would use to hype themselves up, right? Whenever they were in trouble, right? I forget what it's called. Well, what was the Italian word? But yeah, they use Italian words and stuff, but no Italian accents, which I love Italian accents. I'm doing like Italian hand gestures behind the camera, so I thought that was a missed opportunity. But overall, I thought I enjoyed the show. And if you're a fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but you're like, oh, you don't want to watch the the non-stand stuff. Each series it's pretty much standalone. You don't have to rewatch the previous series, right? Like I first read like Part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and watched the old JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime OVAs that David Production didn't do. And, that was my starting point. And going back, I did enjoy the old stuff. But yeah, the series gets a lot better with the stands, right? And I can't wait for them to do Speedball Run. I hear that's supposed to be really good, right? Yeah, so that's the end of this review, guys. 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to watch the show, it's on Netflix and it's on Tubi for free. But no English dub, just the subtitles. Which I would recommend if you don't feel like doing the research afterwards on what the real names are, watch the Japanese sub version, but they'll have the censored names in the subtitles, but you can hear the characters in Japanese say the actual stand names, right? But I thought the English dub, like the guy who did the voice of Diavolo, the villain, was a lot better than the Japanese version. But that's just me. Alright, guys.